successful operational radio liaison among bomber and fighters as developed in the 8th Air Force was definitely a new thing to come out of this war. It didn't work at all at first, and at the end was dependent upon as a matter of routine. C channel was the vehicle. After everyone caught on to how useful it could be, the traffic got so heavy that they had to break it down into 4 C channels, one within each of the 3 air divisions into which the 8th Air Force was divided and one for interdivision communication. In 1943, fighters and bombers had a terrible time establishing contact in the air, and when they did, they usually couldn't understand very clearly. Usually when a fighter would try to call the bombers, the radio operators would be manning guns or doing something else. And when the bombers called, all the fighter boys would likely be over on the Group A channel looking for a fight. From the beginning, it was prescribed as standard practice that 2 fighters in every group should maintain a listening watch on C channel, except when in actual combat. But lack of results on C in those early days made it difficult to enforce this in all cases. The reason all this changed when it did was that the control staff at Saffron Walden kept pounding on it, realizing more than did anyone else how badly needed was a continuous exchange of information, air-to-air and air-to-ground. The success of the elaborate timing system practically dependent on this. As the number of bombers per mission built up toward the 1,000 mark, it became increasingly difficult for the fighters and for control to keep them all sorted out. The field orders usually provided that each division should fly separately as an air task force, and within division the various boxes or combat wings were supposed to fly in a certain order. But a fighter group coming on a big, long, strung-out gaggle of bombers had no real sure way of knowing whether these were the right bombers to escort or not. There were many instances of fighters rendezvousing with the wrong bombers and leaving others unprotected. A fighter would try to call the bombers on his radio, and if he got close enough he might get a reply, and the bombermen might say, "Yes, little friend, I see you on my right," and still it might turn out to be some other bomber he was talking to that also had fighters on his right. VHF was such a new thing to bombers in 1943 that it took some time to master its idiosyncrasies. For one thing, the big bombers did not seem to be sufficiently well bonded, i.e. electrically unified, to permit the radio to work well. And there was the whole matter of procedure, which member of the crew should do the talking, who should maintain a listening watch on the channels, etc. All these problems were eventually solved to a certain extent. Numerous radio technicians from fighter units went to the bomber bases to help them learn the proper maintenance. Efforts were made to bond the aircraft more satisfactorily. The VHF came to be fairly dependable in bombers, although never as much so it was in fighters. Saffron Control could see clearly that something had to be done with call signs to help sort out the missions. A fighter group might miss its rendezvous and be looking all over half Germany for its bombers. The controller would try on Channel C to find out whether those bombers were on course and time. Backward. Reply from Bomber W for Willie. On course. 15 minutes late. And the controller would tear his hair in frustration, having no idea in the world who W for Willie was, what outfit he was in, or even whether he was on the same mission. Once a controller had a long conversation with a bomber thinking he was getting information about a mission over Germany, only to discover at last that it was some misguided joker on a training flight over northern England. So was developed an whole separate system of call signs just for the control of missions. These were assigned in a field order, and they told the controller not only the task force, but the order of flight within the task force of each separate combat wing. No matter what his permanent call sign, for example, the bomber leading the 1st Combat Wing of the 1st Air Task Force was always Vine Grove 11 for C channel purposes. In the 2nd Combat Wing, it was Vine Grove 12, and so on. In the 2nd Air Task Force, it was Vine Grove 21, 22, 23, etc. In the 3rd Air Task Force Vinegrove, 31, 32, 33. These were the call signs to be used on C channel in talking to fighters or in reporting to Saffron. Fighters were given similar designations. The group assigned to escort, the 1st Air Task Force, for example, were given the call sign Balance 11, Balance 12, 13, etc. Same system for other task forces. These again were in addition to the normal individual call signs habitually used by the various pilots. Another thing that helped a lot was a distinctive marking of tail surfaces of the bombers of various units. Charts of all the markings were posted in fighter briefing rooms, and in the field orders the names of the actual units in each force were given. Thus the fighter group leader could know that he was supposed to rendezvous with B-17s with red diagonal striped tails who would answer to the call of Vinegrove 33, and who would answer the call him Balance 33. All the details of this system took quite a long while to work out, and the suggestions came from many sources. But there was one constant supporter of them all, the controller at Saffron. For it was through the C channel controller at Saffron that all the information was handled. There was never any other ground control of this channel, from beginning to end. All the essential facts of the progress of the mission were passed by the C controller direct to the conference line, via the rover. All positions maintained complete logs, so the chief controller could find out at any time he needed to know. How well the system worked is best proved by the fact that, for a long period, the chief question asked by the German interrogators of captured 8th Air Force airmen was, "What kind of device do you carry to make rendezvous?" Apparently, the Jerry thought we had some new kind of airborne radio homer or something. After fighter wings were assigned to air divisions, instead of to 8 Fighter Command, it became practicable to handle inter-division traffic on separate C channels. This cut down interference on the main C. At Saffron, it was only necessary to install 4 C channel controllers side by side and handle them as a single coordinated unit. As previously explained, the wing used a bomber relay aircraft to extend the range of C channel. It cannot be stated that all fighter-bomber intercom problems were licked by the use of C channel in the 8th. Far from it. One reason was the limitations of the 4-channel SCR. 522 prevented establishment of a guard channel free of normal traffic, on which a bomber call would always reach a fighter and vice versa. Another was that VHF never did work quite as well in bombers as it did in smaller airplanes. But what was accomplished with the C channels was extremely valuable. Many times, this common channel came in handy for other purposes than fighter-bomber coordination. Every once in a while, a pilot would forget to turn off his radio, and this open transmitter would create such a noise it would block the frequency. In emergencies, the group could then be control on C channel. This frequency also served numerous emergency homing purposes. On the continent, whenever 9 TAC helped home 8th Air Force aircraft, it was on C. In England, several RAF airdromes along the English coast, see accompanying map, were provided with standby American fixer stations and crews, prepared to home fighter groups when necessary. Before the split up of C channel, these were on C exclusively. After that, they were on B and C. The crews to man them came from various fighter groups. Several other RAF stations, including the special crash strips on the coast, had C channel crystals available, as did all American fighter bases. At any of these fields, a call from the Saffron controller could result in a homer being on the air in 10 minutes or less. It was customary for Saffron to stand up beforehand any such facilities for which a need was anticipated. On at least one occasion, bad interference made the wing's D channel unserviceable, and all the D channel fixer stations were set up on C for the emergency. But the fighter-bomber talk was always the main freight carried on Channel C. "Hello, Vinegrove 22. This is Balance 22, coming in at 3 o'clock high. Roger, 22. Damn glad you're here.